You've also been with Adidas for quite a long time. So I would like to know, what does design at Puma look like? So
It's of course it's a very similar business, and very interesting, especially between those two companies, is they came from the same, the same family or the same
yeah.
brand originally. So what sets Puma maybe apart from Adidas is, I think it has to do with the size also. Puma is, again, sorry for throwing out some numbers and things, but like 4 to 5 times, smaller in terms of turnovers, but that means also in terms of scale, than Adidas is. And therefore, today, and that was the first thing when I came back, 5 years ago, here is there is much more a family spirit here, than in Adidas, which has obviously a different scale, a different setup.
Puma is one of the leading sports lifestyle brands in the world. It is rapidly progressing and coming up with a lot of technological innovations with their aim of reducing environmental impacts. Today we have with us one of the masterminds behind Puma's bioevolution. He is Romain Girard, the senior head of innovation at Puma. He has worked with Adidas for quite a long time and is now mentoring students across various universities for uplifting their design thinking. While he talks about his journey as a footwear designer, his approach with different athletes, he also touches upon some important aspects like collaborations and building the right skill set and mindset while innovating a product. So let's move straight away to our conversation and listen to the expert himself. I welcome you to ArtTown podcast series. It's my honor to be talking to you, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Really nice to meet you, and it's also a pleasure, to be connected with India. We are Puma is actually. We know Puma as a let's say a strong impact in India, and it's really a pleasure, and to be able to discuss with you today.
Be glad to have you here, and I hope you're in good health and you're doing well. Uh, so I would like to begin this conversation with your own story. So everybody knows you as a product designer, the senior head of innovation at Puma, but beyond that, what's your story?
Ah, where to start? I think let's start chronologically. So, um, I'm born and raised in France at the end of the 70s. Um, I had very quickly an interest for architecture, and let's say creative engineering. I study into that directions, but back in the days, architecture in France was really limited, and people at the end of the university were struggling actually to get out of a job. And then I realized that actually the same philosophy, the same thinking when someone is thinking about a building could be applied on products. And that's where, again, back end of the 70s, product design started to surface and raise. And I changed the directions of my study from architecture towards, back then it was called engineering design in France, also in the north of France. Did a 5 years program there, and then in that school specifically, and it's actually very interesting because the school at the end of my study started to partner with a design school in Pune. The school in France is called Institut Supérieur de Design, and there was a partnership with a design school in Pune at the end. Unfortunately, I was already out, but I could see there was some connections there. And then in that school program, there was a lot of internships. So I got to learn in those 5 years program different businesses, more engineering, more aesthetic driven, and then finish basically my internship or my school program with a 6 months internship where I realized also I need to get out of France. The goal was to go to the US, see another country, another culture, another way to also to approach, how can I say, product and product design. Didn't work out. I landed in Austria, so in the middle of Europe, not too far from France, in a very diverse design studio, which used to be connected actually with Porsche design. So that was kind of interesting and actually in the same city where Porsche and Porsche design was grounded. And then I spent a year there and started to work on multiple projects, from a teeth brush to a boat cabin to actually some outside, more architectural things, and footwear for a small company, started to touch footwear. And there was a click, there was a real good connection for me in footwear, because compared to other product design, because footwear had actually a very broad reach. It's not, purely from a product, there is a hard part into it. Then there is a soft part into it. But also footwear back in the days also started to be relevant more and more into the culture aspect of this. Like car design was really hot in those days, but footwear started to have that reach. And we did a very good project on this with this company. And then, like always, the hazard of life, there was actually 2002, Puma, through some design connections, Puma reached out to me and said, hey, we have this studio in Munich, kind of independent studio, but doing 100% product footwear design for Puma. Would you be interested? And I joined that studio in 2002. We're commuting from Munich to Nuremberg or Herzogenaurach here every week, and started to work on motorsport was the focus. And there was the days of Future Cat, Speed Cat. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but very famous style from Puma back then. And then Trail Fox was one of my first projects. Trail Fox is also, back then, was a very successful trail running shoe for Puma. Anyway, I spent 3.5 years, and I realized at the end of that journey, like, it's been a fantastic and amazing experience traveling the world, from Asia, Taiwan, China, and so forth, to USA. Puma had, and still have a strong headquarter a second headquarter in the USA. Traveling also around Europe, working on multiple categories for Puma. But I realized the limit of being, let's say, outside of the company. So you are still, consulting for the company. So I tried my best to get into the company, but contractually was impossible, and therefore the only option I was facing was to leave that and to move to another company. And then I had the chance to move to Adidas. So it was end of 2006, and nearly stayed there 10 years, where I have to say that was also good, because Adidas, from the design maturity, was on another level. You have to imagine Adidas was also on another scale, and therefore the integration of design in the company was way deeper, and the opportunities for me to move through different categories, but also learn from more senior designers, was extremely enriching. So I did a couple of categories in Adidas, and then finished with football, which is the heart and soul of Adidas, and where I was actually leading the footwear and accessories design team. And then again, the hazard of life, it's a small community also between, Puma and Adidas, obviously here around Herzogenaurach, and in a private moment, I got to know back then the head of innovation in Puma, and then he was looking for a design brain to shape back innovation within Puma. And then I took on a journey. I saw this as a beautiful opportunity. Puma was my first love, and then was the opportunity to get back. And Puma was, we had the new CEO Björn Golden joining in 2014, and that was, therefore you could feel like his passion for football, his envy to raise again performance in the company and to take the company to a next level, was there. And I could smell this, I could feel this. I was like, yes, that sounds like a new beautiful challenge. So took on the challenge, heading up design within innovation here in Herzogenaurach for 4.5 years. And then last year, basically over a year ago, there was some restructuring and adjustment, and my former boss decided also to move on to new challenges in his professional life, and I got the opportunity to head up the full team here. And so far, it's been a fantastic ride and fantastic journey. And I think it reflects into where Puma is at today in terms of numbers, but also in terms of brand heat. I think project like jamming, project like Netfit, like some of those things have been I think breaking through. But I can only say there is more to come in 22, 23. I think we've got really a lot of great things and great stories coming up.
Wow, that's one roller coaster of a journey. And it's wonderful and it's very inspiring, I must say. And now that you've consistently been working on numerous projects with various athletes over the years, I'm very intrigued to know, how do you approach a new project and what is your creative design process?
This is a famous question, right? This is the golden. That's part of, and sorry if I was a little bit long on my journey on my story, but it's there is a lot of also things you cannot predict, and one of the driver I forgot to mention there is the passion for what you do. The passion for what you do, the love for what you do, is giving you that drive to always go the extra mile and always connect with people and so forth. Why I'm pushing back on this or linking back on this is because this passion is the engine of an innovation process. An innovation process you have compared to anything else, it's not, there is no brief. There is no one coming to you and say, hey, we need this. Innovation starts actually with you and your team that, actually get out there, understand the athletes, understand the business, understand the culture, understand the world, like understand as much as you can to therefore creatively after come with a proposal that's gonna be relevant, meaningful, and obviously from a performance side. We are more here to tackle, the performance aspect, but not only actually, because also today performance and culture is getting very close. Yes, a football player wants the best performing boot, to accelerate, to don't slip, to change directions, to kick the ball, of course, but it needs to have the right also look and feel. And there is this American say, like, if you look good, you feel good. This is more and more connected, So in the process, so back to your question, in the process today, the first part of there is no process. That's what I wanted to learn also. There is no official process. The process is to get people motivated, like people passionate about what they do together. Of course, in certain expertise, we need, we have here researcher, we have design, we have engineering, we have new manufacturing. So you have kind of sociology. So you need a couple of profile and expertise that are motivated to move the needle, and then get those people together and then start to get out there, talk with the athletes, talk with the consumer, visit the store, like, again, try to understand what is really in depth the problem. And then from there also as a group, more driven from a design side, start to give answers creatively. Very quickly also the difference, I think, with innovation to England is very quickly for us also is to build them, because looking at things on paper, it's only take you as far as, so build them roughly and so forth, get back to get back to the consumer, continue that conversation on a prototype level, learn from this, and then continue that loop of learning, making, until you feel the level of perfection is good enough. Now it's landing. And landing the product with the athletes. What's interesting in that process is actually it's never stop, and that's why I love also that job. Is every day is going to be a new day. Like every day there is a new material, there is a new input, there is an athlete that has a new need. So you can always make things better. And that's also what to me is it's kind of the passion throwing back at you is like it's always different. And the process is also always different, depending on the sport, depending on the athletes, depending on the moment of the time, where you are, where the others are. It's always very, very different. And I find that very rich, very rich.
It is a truly interesting approach, and to keep evolving based on the feedback that you get and the passion to get better and better. It is truly motivational. And you work in the field of innovation that demands a fresh, intuitive mindset every day. So, and wherein you cannot afford to have a creative block as such. So, my question to you is where do you derive your inspiration from?
This is, I think the inspiration, of course, I think, how can I say, like, you have to have a certain mindset. And I don't know if it's a big word to say a certain creative mindset and so forth, but that question came also a few times. And for me, it's always very important to reflect on me, reflect on the team, how we can do things better. And, those type of questions, they are a spark for this type of reflection. And I realized that actually there is a common aspect of the people that, let's say more so wants to innovate and so forth is the empathy aspect of it. So a lot of those profiles love to connect with people and have an empathy for the people. It could be an athlete, it could be, whatever the problem is you want to try to solve it, and really want deeply to make something better and want to understand, want to discuss, want to connect. So this is, when this empathy is there, I don't know, but it feels like it triggers a creative thinking, because you want to understand, but understand for understanding is not a motivation. You are not moving the needle. The people that want to understand that deep is because they want to. And then there is, I think, really this empathy is a key aspect, and is a key food. Or key ingredient to really trigger creativity. I think next to that is certain of your own, or your own mindset and how you grow, also maybe how you develop there. Like, I've been always interested, I don't know, by kind of anything. I've been, drawing as a young age, and be interested to draw and put, some thoughts. It's even not automatically product, but some thoughts or some emotion to paper. So I think if you culture this also early enough, the dots starts to align and start to connect as you mature, or as you are getting older.
You have a lot of experience in this domain working as a footwear designer. You've also been with Adidas for quite a long time. So I would like to know, what does design at Puma look like? Like you said, Puma is your first love. So
it's of course it's a very similar business, and very interesting, especially between those two companies, is they came from the same family, or the same brand originally. So already there is some bridges that are very unique in our industry, I think, and both companies are actually beautiful in their in their aspect, like because they're actually coming from the same history. So what sets Puma maybe apart from Adidas is, I think it has to do with the size also. Puma is, again, sorry for throwing out some numbers and things, but like 4 to 5 times smaller in terms of turnovers, but that means also in terms of scale, than Adidas is. And therefore today, and that was the first thing when I came back 5 years ago here, is there is much more a family spirit here, than in Adidas, which has obviously a different scale, a different setup, and so forth. And I think still today we are able to contain this spirit, and actually we try to cultivate that spirit of this family approach and family spirit, where the hierarchy here in Puma is way flatter. You can approach big decision maker people easily. It doesn't matter if you are an intern, if you are in charge of a category, if you are like it's like the dynamic is way easier, and therefore there is way more of this family spirit, which I think helps, because of course you want to grow the business. Yes, of course you want to do the right things, and on a product level, yes, you want to elevate certain athletes, but the core of this is, how do we work on this together? And if the pressure is already out by saying, hey, we are all kind of equal here, and if you have an idea, if you want to discuss, if you, like, it's open, it's more open, to have those type of conversation. You create an environment that is automatically also give more room for freedom and for creativity. So I would say this is really this family approach, family mindset, very very closely attached with the size of the company.
That's great. That's great. And I think Puma is progressing and growing really fast. Also, its ideology to lighten environmental impacts is what makes them stand out today. And as we keep saying that sustainability is the need of the hour, and may it be fashion, architecture, or design, everyone is working for it. So my question to you is, how, according to you, can innovation in design enhance sustainability for a better future?
It's a big part of the future journey. I mean, we are not going to move forward without thinking sustainability from the beginning of a creative process, and not at the end. So it's a big milestone on our agenda. At the same time, it's also a very complex milestone. That means you could imagine, on many levels, the product complexity, the sourcing complexity, down to even how we land the story. And here in Puma, we took an approach as a starter, actually, to make sure that we are not greenwashing. That means also for us, throwing a story out there. Yes, it helps to get traction, but we rather work, on our sourcing side, making sure that our partners, our factories, and so forth are, doing their best there. In terms of energy consumption, water, and other aspects, treatment of materials or creation of materials. So this is more the approach so far that is visible from us. Is we are working really hard in the backyard to make sure that we are definitely doing big steps in being more sustainable. Obviously, the next steps towards the next seasons and years, this is gonna trigger more stories and product that will be more visible. But again, our approach is, let's start with the starting point, which is the base. Let's make really sustainability right, and not try to just talk about sustainability. It is also a very important topic. Why? Because actually, if you go back in the time 2006 and 2006 exactly, and towards 2008, sustainability was the starting point of Puma with the former CEO. The challenge is, like very often with Puma, it was ahead of his time. Sustainability was back then there was not enough meat on the bone to be able to really exploit this or take it to the next level. We were always catch back by the cost. Sustainability was attached to more expensive products and certain issues. So to push back from sustainability for the last actually 5, 6, 7 years, to make sure that we are able to build again the business and do the right things. But now this is again like a big milestone on our agenda, and there will be, I think, a couple of very relevant and great things coming from the company also in the next years.
That is a wonderful way that you've put it. I've read that you've also worked in many such projects where sustainability has been the key factor. So could you elaborate on any one of them? For instance, Design to Fade project of Puma.
So now you're asking more concretely, design towards or in relation with sustainability, right? So
yeah,
I think there is sustainability is not just a product topic. Is really what we realize also is a cultural aspect. Like, we need to understand, also, and we have the responsibility actually moving forward to even change the mindset of some of the people, or open the eyes of some of the people that are even not seeing the challenge in that world. So
absolutely,
we can. We have, because of this, we have from the beginning again to think, when we create a product, where this product is going to die, and so try to think about the loop, or think about just behind that moment where the product lands, but okay, what does it mean after that? What does it mean 6 months after, a year after, and so forth? And therefore, creatively and strategically, where does it make sense that we put focus to minimize the impact that is coming at the end of the product creation? And again, this cannot be, or this is actually wrong, to create something and to think afterwards, how do I neutralize this in terms of CO2 or you have to think about this at the beginning, because this is a spark for how you're going to solve certain problem in your creative process. So sustainability needs to be right next to consumer input, athlete input, needs to be thought through and discuss and find some solutions. And maybe some of them, they need to be a compromise, because yes, you cannot be 100% there, because you need also to tackle a certain level of performance. So it's all about, after waiting this out and making sure we do the right decisions to our bigger journey.
This is an incredible thought process, and I think this is what sets you apart as a designer and also makes Puma outstand. So moving on to a completely different topic. So you are collaborating with various design schools, and you yourself are mentoring a group of students. So I have two questions for you. First, what is the vision of Puma behind such collaborations? And the second question is, what is it that you look for in the students while choosing a team?
So the design school topics, that's a very good topic too, actually. It's been, we realized that today we, first actually starting with our athletes, like our athletes, they are people that are, between 16 and, 22, 24, 25 years or so. It's a younger type, of consumer. Overall, next to the performance athletes, there is also Puma. We understand actually that today also, if we speak to those, to those consumers have the power to influence the older generation. And this is like the natural life cycle. If you look at the different generations, this is the natural life cycle. So, obviously I'm getting older, people in the company, yes, it's growing. There is younger talents coming in and so forth. But for me, it's very important, especially in innovation, but in the design area, that we stay very close to the consumer. And actually the best consumer is the consumer that is on top of that, a designer, because he's the 20 or 18 years old today. He's exactly the guy that plays football, plays tennis, plays basketball, but also have, a certain culture, how he, the certain culture of music, or of, other aspects. And so the best way in the creative process is if the guy that's gonna give you an input is also a creative mind, like you get even sharper, to those points. So right. we made sure that, and for us it's very important that we stay very close to that community of creatives, because they are again a big part also the consumer. But also back to what I was saying there at the beginning, like innovation or innovating, for me, it's a conversation. You have to get out, you have to reach out and so forth. And so to me, to us here, it's an opportunity to always stay connected with those new talents, with those new brains, and see how they tick, and see, which tool they use, what are their needs, like how do they envision the future? Like, there is, you realize this as creative being after a certain time in the industry, I'm waiting my words, but there is maybe some pollutions coming out of this, because you've been going through some hassles, and there is like the things that you cannot do, and so you try to keep always your eyes as wide open as you can, but there is maybe some pre-thinking that has been shaping in your mind, and the beauty of this young, dynamic, also new creative people is that like, there is this purity, or nearly this virginity, if I might say, like that is coming out of there. This is just fantastic, because that's how you really reach next level. And so what we want to do is actually, we want to make sure that we have that conversation with them. And by the way, which is completely like I think not an industry standard, but we have interns, these creative interns in the innovation department, which I know might sound contraproductive or counterintuitive. People say innovation long term, you want to protect your ideas. No, I believe into conversation, inviting people. We have to be smart, of course. We work with intellectual properties. We make sure that the ideas are. But let's discuss about that. Let's really positively move the needle, change the world, and therefore again have the conversation with the young creatives. So that's why we shaped that program. We realized that there is a couple of schools also that are, it's a mixture of course the talent himself, so the character himself, but also the school type of studies and way to shape the creative mind. So we identify exactly a couple of schools, and we started to create a relationship with them, whether it is through the interns, but also whether it is exactly through a specific program. We had a couple of sprints exactly where we had students coming here. And what was also interesting is, obviously we are not able to onboard all those talents in the company. We don't have the headcount, so we don't have automatically the space. But I'm still in touch, and the creatives here also, we're still in touch with a lot of those people that are now in different industries, and maybe because they didn't forget that moment. We created also a unique experience where we've learned a lot from Puma, but they've been also, like, I think, pretty impressed from what Puma stands for and what Puma is. And so we are still in touch, and maybe there is other opportunities in the future.
And I think all of us will have to agree on this note that working with raw talent and collaborations is the future. In saying that, what according to you are the qualities or skills to be a good professional or an efficient designer? Like, what is that advice that you would like to give young designers?
It's really a hard one, because somehow it requires, I would say that there is a lot of qualities, if you want to detach yourself, I would say, from a certain mass also. But I try to think therefore of the key one. I think that might be qualities that you might not think of first. That means for me it's less about your ability of sketching or your ability to really be creative. I think the starting point for me, like one of the criteria, key qualities, being humble, being again open, seeking conversation on a one-on-one level, so being able to adjust your level also to really go deep into the conversation. So, and I'm back to this empathy. Like, this is this area for me, like, is key, because this is how you get the depth. Then there is maybe a second bulk of second area, let's say, of qualities, which is, of course, you need to be able to have a certain, how can I say, creative mind approach to that. You need to be able to put that on paper, so that that you can onboard people with you on your storytelling, on your journey. You need to be able to talk about that, in a certain way. I would say these are the two areas, the two key areas, and in this order, the two key areas of qualities that I think today, let's say, future designers needs to, it's not automatically to look at and learn, because I think there is a lot of things also, like, you will not learn, is you are more like this and so forth, but try to therefore see, like, do I embody this? Like, do I connect with this? I think today, like, on one side you see a lot of superstar system and Instagram and this, and I am, and I'm an influencer and so forth. But I realized that with the time and working with quite some people, is still the best creative approach is to completely step back from this. Maybe you want, as a result, you want your product to go there, to be something unique and so forth. But the approach needs to be completely the opposite: is stay down to earth, understand, go deep, talk, raise creative idea, exchange, discuss it, adjust this, change them, and then do the right things for those people or for that problem, and then it's going to be successful. But like you have exactly to detach from that, and there is some parallels with, if you look with some artists, like I don't see actually a design job as being an art, as being close to an artist, but there is a parallel there. Is you see a lot of famous artists actually, they've been really living in a certain way that doesn't reflect actually, as an example, the money they are making and so forth. And so there is really a clear split. And I think, if you want to be successful and so forth, you have to be clear with yourself with what are you trying to aim. Do you want to do the right things, or do you want to be successful? And, this could be linked, but you need to start with the right thing.
Absolutely. That is indeed a very insightful. Now that we have come towards the end of this conversation, my last closing question to you is, what will sports and lifestyle be like in 2030, and how do you see tomorrow's design?
Ooh. Again, a very hard question there. I think, I would love to have a crystal ball and be able to know more there. I think we have been, as a humanity, we have been touched by the worst case scenario that could happen is the COVID, And so this in 14 months, you could see that in these 14 months, the change of behavior, in every aspect, the change in our, living habits, in the change in our interests, has been completely flipped in 14 months, And so where I'm throwing this here is, we are reflecting and talking a lot about this. Therefore, of course, there will be after COVID. I mean, sure, there will be, there will be a moment after that, and COVID will stay long with us. It might stay forever, but there will be an after moment of this. So we are definitely, putting our heads together and have a lot of conversations actually with different, different, I would say, experts or expertise out there to try to understand, and tap in our intuition actually also where the journey is going to go. I think one of the big learnings we see out of that is also today having really a far vision is kind of less relevant, because like you could realize that all of a sudden from 1 month to another, like the world is going to be different. So it might be more relevant actually, and might be better to be, a little bit more reactive, in certain aspect, than to try to throw the big vision out there, which might be meaningless in 3 years from now. Because anyway, again, the world have changed in another direction. So there is a lot. Difficult to answer your question. I cannot say this. What I can say is this moment has been, impacting us big time here as creative on how to, how to think about the future, but also how to approach it. Also within our internal process, how to be even more quick to the market when it comes to things that we see and feel. And maybe one last point of that, like that's a word I was using 1 or 2 times, but also to tap even more than ever into our guts. So it's less about, an AI analytic prediction, but it's way more about, tapping into your belly feeling and your guts into, because of all those conversations, all what you see and all what you hear is like using more of your feeling. And this is also an interesting aspect of, how can I say, like leveraging the creatives here in the company. There is things that are not rational, but they are right. And so we want to tap more into this also.
Beautiful. Those are some really interesting insights, and I'm sure our listeners also have gained a lot from this conversation. Personally, it was really beneficial for me, and thank you for joining us, sir, and thank you for giving us your valuable time.
You are very welcome. Thank you very much for the invite also.
Congratulations to all of you who made it till the end. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I really hope you liked it. If you did, please leave us a review on our YouTube comment section And if you come up with any questions while listening to this podcast, you can add a comment on Instagram or YouTube, and we will get back to you and help you as much as possible. You can find us on Instagram or our website by the name arttown.store. So do connect with us. We're truly excited to converse with you.